FBI finally responding to the explosive Twitter files and Elon Musk exposing the collusion. The Bureau claims they did not send Twitter any, quote, specific instructions or details regarding the Hunter Biden laptop story. And that, quote, it is unfortunate that conspiracy theorists and others are feeding the American public misinformation with the sole purpose of attempting to discredit the agency. Joining me right now is the former chief counsel at the Republican National Committee, Jill Holtzman-Vogel. Jill, thanks very much for being here. We know that the FBI paid Twitter $3.4 million. And now FBI officials are not denying that. They say, yeah, we did pay Twitter, but we're calling it a reimbursement for, quote, reasonable costs and expenses associated with their response to a legal process. And they're also confirming that Twitter's not the only company they paid. So they must have paid all the social media companies to censor the Biden laptop story and the evidence on it that showed influence peddling. Your thoughts?
Well, I think as this all starts to emerge, it really shocks the conscience of most people. And for those of us who have followed this story as an election law matter, and as this was brought as a complaint to the Federal Election Commission, alleging that this was an in-kind contribution, and now this is all coming out on the sort of flip side of this as the Louisiana and Missouri attorneys general are coming at this from the sort of First Amendment side. It's all starting to really come out and come together. And so for the public is now seeing this for the first time, I think most people are astounded to learn that the FBI was engaged in such a cozy relationship with a media company and sort of bullying them the way this has all now been exposed in this back and forth and these transcripts that have been released. And also in the information that Elon Musk has released, clearly showing that they were highly engaged in an effort to suppress this information and to not only just engage with them in a back and forth, but then to pay the company. And so I think for most people who were maybe a little cynical about this, it's all right out there now. And I think it's just been a stunning revelation.
Well, I mean, what happens now? They interfered in an election. Right? I mean, that's what this is. We've got emails from the FBI saying these are the accounts that need to be censored, and then Twitter people come back and say handled. Right, Dagan?
Well, that's it. I mean, that's the part which just is stunning, because I read that transcript and they come back and it's literally as if they're taking the direction directly from the FBI. Got it. Handled, done, and they're coming back and specifically saying, we need you to take this down in response to a request related to Hunter Biden and, you know, showing something sexual related to him on Twitter. And so the fact that the federal government can go to a media company and engage in this level of censorship is shocking. And I think this is going to set in motion a series of events, and I think there are going to be significant legal consequences. And I think that states attorneys general, like Louisiana and like Missouri, aren't going to stop. I think this is just, the beginning of, sort of the tip of the iceberg. And as we have a very rare opportunity here where you have an executive who's willing to engage in a level of transparency that is fairly impressive. I mean, the fact that Elon Musk is willing to put this information out there at the same time that, folks engaged in on the state side and law enforcement are willing to move forward on their own is pretty impressive. So I think it's almost a perfect storm. We're going to get a lot of information that we would have otherwise never seen.
Never.
It's Dagan McDowell. To note, there is some wiggle room in how the FBI did respond to Fox News. The FBI did not say they didn't provide any information whatsoever to Twitter about Hunter Biden, number one. And also what is of interest is in the revelations from Michael Schellenberger in the Twitter file dump, there were 10 documents that FBI Special Agent Elvis Chan sent to then head of site integrity Yoel Roth through the teleporter, which is a one-way communications channel from the FBI to Twitter. And the FBI told Fox News that the 10 documents in question had nothing to do with Hunter. They said 8 of them were farm line actor related, 2 were providing Twitter contacts at the FBI election command post for Twitter to use if they saw questionable posts like possible election fraud. Well, this is going to all be uncovered by likely at the Oversight Committee once Congressman James Comer takes over the Oversight Committee. This will be a certain focus. Hopefully, the American people will get to hear Elvis Cheney, the FBI, and Joel Roth at Twitter, or formerly of Twitter, sit in front of the American people and answer these specific questions about what was going on, what was in these communications, because quite frankly, none of it lines up in terms of the timeline of the New York Post got ready to publish this story and it winds up, the FBI kind of intervenes. The timing, there's always a why now, as Maria and I always talk about. And the why now is the New York Post was getting ready to publish this, and Twitter suddenly intervenes to stop the American people from seeing it right before an election.
That's right. And I think when Comer comes forward and we have these hearings, this is going to be sort of the sort of critical sort of third component of this, where the big next information dump is going to come. And again, I think it has been rather shocking to most people who weren't all the way sort of engaged in all this and now are seeing for the first time exactly how duplicitous and how cozy this relationship was, and how much of a directive the FBI was how much they were driving this in a way that's just, I think, relatively appalling for most people.
And it's the same as what they did in 2016, because it was the FBI that was driving the Russia collusion story, which, again, was a lie. And they're driving it as a way to pursue FISA warrants on Trump officials to take down Trump. So they interfered in elections, 2 presidential elections, 16 and 20.
Well, and it shows you how sophisticated inside the agency this actual program is, and that the model worked once and it clearly worked a second time, and the level of sophistication and the level and depth to which they were engaged, and not only just in terms of the flow of information and how much power they had over these companies, but then the financial piece now that we know about. We didn't know about that before.
That's right.
And so I think the fact that this has been institutionalized in a way that that's actually had such an impact on 2 full election cycles is something that we should all find incredibly disturbing, and isn't something that most people would think would happen in this country with our federal government and our free speech.
And we should also remember that this money, this $3.5 million that they paid Twitter, the other millions that they paid Facebook and Google and anybody else, we don't know who else, that's taxpayer money. And right now, as we speak, they want to give the FBI another $11 billion. Who knows if they're going to spend that wrongly as well. Another $11 billion is being discussed right now. It's in the omnibus bill that Democrats wrote. Jill, thanks very much for weighing in on all of this. We appreciate it. Jill Holtzman joining us this morning.